This is the fight of our time. It's been the fight of my career. I'm Steve Bullock, and I'm running for president. With your help, we will take our democracy back.
From around the big sky and your local news station, this is Montana Right Now.
Good evening. I'm Taylor Tucker, live in Helena. We've got crews positioned across the state to help break down this story for you tonight. But let's start right here in Helena, where the governor held two separate press events. As you can imagine, it was a whirlwind for the governor and his team today, as he had a campaign launch at his alma mater, Helena High School. Now, during that launch, Governor Bullock not only announced his plans, but started getting into the specifics of why he's running. He says it's become his mission to make people feel like they can create a good life for their family in their hometowns, regardless of your financial status. Now, here's what you didn't see on your Facebook feed if you were watching live today. Take a look at all of the national media outlets that came to cover the event. Local media got a brief opportunity to sit down with the governor this morning before the national crews got to town. In those few minutes, Bullock stressed his ability to win in a red state. The governor acknowledges that this presidential run is a long shot, and he wants Montanans to know that he's still going to run the state while on the campaign trail.
Went on vacation in the Bob Marshall Wilderness area for 5 days last year with my family. Every day was on the cell phone, so that I'll continue to be both making the same decisions that I'd make if I was in the office, regular contact with my staff, and that's both the governor's office and the agencies.
Now, if he doesn't win, I asked the governor if he would be interested in another federal position. He seemed pretty open to it, saying that he's looking forward to being a part of any change within the current administration. And now I'll send it over to Ben Weinman in Missoula, who spoke to a political analyst today about the chances of Governor Bullock actually winning the presidency. Ben, what did you learn?
Yeah, good evening, Taylor. With more than 20 Democrats now vying for the party's nomination, that party, the Democratic Party, has set strict criteria to actually qualify to be on the stage at their first debate in Iowa. Candidates actually must be polling either at 1% or higher, or have collected donations from at least 65,000 unique donors, with a minimum of 200 donors in at least 20 different states. Bullock is currently polling at less than 1%, and though his PAC, or Political Action Committee, had about $2 million in the bank, we've learned tonight that that money does not transfer to a presidential campaign. So as of today, Bullock needs to start from the ground up with fundraising. I spoke to our political analyst, Lee Banville, today to see what Bullock's chances are on the national stage. Montana's two-term governor, Steve Bullock, is a household name in the Treasure State. Political analyst Lee Banville says he's a virtual unknown in most parts of the nation.
It's a real long shot. You know, I mean, for him to make a major splash, a lot of things have to line up.
A recent CNN poll had Bullock polling at less than 1% in a crowded field of notable Democrats.
A couple of the big candidates falter, or a couple of the big candidates we think are going to come in don't come in.
Bullock is touting his ability to pass progressive projects like Medicaid expansion and publicly funded preschool in a red state. It's a strategy Banville says could be effective in a general election, but he points out that Bullock must stand out in the Democratic primary.
It's harder when you're like, I'm the guy who works with everybody. It's like everyone's like, oh, great.
Virtually unknown candidates have excelled before, though. In 1976, a relatively unknown Jimmy Carter gained the Democratic nomination over candidates with much more name recognition.
It's kind of turned into a bit of a myth that everyone can do this, but it's happened, and it could happen again.
And you see that crowded field right there, as we mentioned off the top. Who's actually in this race? Governor Bullock is now the 22nd notable Democrat to announce they're seeking their party's nomination. Some of those recognizable names being former Vice President Joe Biden, Senator Elizabeth Warren, and Senator Bernie Sanders. Two Republicans are on that list, including President Donald Trump. Voters in Iowa will be the first to weigh in on a very crowded field. They're going to be caucusing on February 3rd, 2020. We're going to send things over to Billings now, where Greg Lamont spoke with local political scientist Professor Paul Pope on how he sees the governor's duties in Montana being impacted as he wages a national campaign. Greg?
Thanks, Ben. With the announcement, the governor will spend much of the next year campaigning in key states across the nation, attempting to get some political footing at the national level. So what does that mean for his responsibilities in Montana? MSU Billings Professor Paul Pope joins us with that answer.
I'm Steve Bullock, and I'm running for president.
Are you surprised by Governor Bullock's announcement he's running for president?
A little bit. He's one of 22 now running for office for the nomination for president. Probably be 3 more before everything's done and said.
What's in it for him?
Name recognition. Right now, he doesn't really have much outside of the state. He has no national presence. This gives him some name recognition, maybe perhaps a cabinet position down the road, whomever gets the nomination for the Democrat side if they happen to win the race.
Well, as I know, he's not independently wealthy. So who bankrolls a candidate from the state of Montana who nobody's heard of?
That's a good question. I think that's going to be his struggle, is that he's going to have to try to convince others outside the state to help him out financially, because there is not enough money in Montana for him to win this nomination. When you think of that many candidates on the Democratic side running, how confusing is that to most Americans? I think it's very confusing. We thought it was big 2016 when Republicans had like 15 or 16 people running. We have 22, probably going to be 25. So that's going to be very confusing. And how does any one of those candidates galvanize the party? That's a good question. They each represent some different aspect of ideology or representation with women or different racial or minority groups. So it'll be very complex, and no one of them has all what is probably needed to secure the nomination. Now, we know the governor has traveled to Iowa several times, and polling suggests that he's not polling enough to be able to get into the debates. That's true. The vast majority of the Democrat contingent running for this nomination probably won't even get on the ballot in most of the states, and we'll probably see 75% of them drop off the list before the end of the primary. And what would you expect to see Bullock's core issues be? His core issues will probably be stuff that's similar to what he ran on as governor. He's going to be running likely on things related to agriculture, unions, jobs is pretty common, the economy, and very likely health care. And what chance would you give him of winning? 1 in 22. Well, there was a governor from Arkansas and a peanut farmer from Georgia. Yeah, you never know. We're so far out from the actual primary that anything can happen. Sky's the limit. Thanks very much. Thank you. Now let's head back to Taylor and Helena to break down why Montana politics are garnering so much national attention. Taylor?
Greg, in the last few weeks, Montana has gotten a lot of national attention surrounding Governor Bullock's awaited announcement. But the political excitement in Montana really has been growing for years now. The excitement started in 2016 when President-elect Trump announced Montana's Congressman Ryan Zinke would join Trump's cabinet. As the first ever cabinet member from Montana, Secretary of the Interior Zinke vacated his congressional seat. That led to a special election to fill Zinke's spot. Many national and international experts were watching as Rob Quist took on Greg Gianforte. That campaign ending in a load of national attention when Gianforte tackled a reporter the night before the election. Then in 2018, President Trump set his sights on unseating Montana Democratic Senator Jon Tester. The president flew out to Montana for an unprecedented 4 campaign stops in the Treasure State. In the end, Tester came out on top, but experts say many are starting to take note of the political climate here in Montana. Now, the governor's announcement today was very strategically here in Helena, in his hometown, and it's a thread that we can expect him to be using throughout his presidential campaign. I'll have more on that coming up tonight in the later newscasts. For now, I'll send it back to Ben Weinman in Missoula with reaction from Montanans about today's announcement. Ben.
Thank you so much, Taylor. Yeah, reactions just been pouring in from around the nation as Bullock made his announcement today. So we actually hit the streets of Great Falls to find out what Montanans had to say.
Well, what do you think are his chances of winning?
I'm thinking not very good, since there's 20 other people also in the race.
I think it's awesome. Awesome. Very nice to see some fresh blood kind of coming in on it.
Well, I think he might be a long shot, but if he could get the electoral vote, he could win.
I've seen him all the time. He was never somebody who didn't care about nobody. He cares about the people in Montana.
I'm not sure that he can actually secure the vote, but he could get things, some things going.
It would be an average citizen in the United States, and hopefully it'd be someone that could make a difference for us.
We're going to have complete coverage of Governor Bullock's announcement on our late and local newscast tonight. We're going to switch gears now, head over to our weather authority, Tracy Smith, for our first look at your forecast. Tracy?
Thank you so much there, Ben. Well, as we take a look across the state of Montana, we have been looking at scattered showers and even thunderstorms. In fact, some of our strongest thunderstorms have really been developing across our south central locations all the way from Roundup down into Billings, and that was earlier this afternoon. As we start to take a closer look at some of those stronger storms as we get into the evening hours, we have been seeing some stronger storms just to the south of Lewistown, right outside of Roundup, and even just to the north of Sheridan. Please be extra careful, especially if you're going to be outdoors. The storm that moved through Roundup earlier throughout the afternoon did produce a severe thunderstorm warning. To kind of give you an idea of what we were seeing, well, a significant amount of hail, and this kind of gives you an idea of that size of hail that we were experiencing. We have more showers and thunderstorms to come over the next couple of days, and we'll have all those details coming up here in just a bit. Ben, I'll send things back over to you.
Thank you very much, Tracy. As you just mentioned, a flood warning in effect for south central Missoula as water levels in the Clark Fork River continue to rise. Right now, those levels in the Clark Fork sit about 7.6 feet, which is considered minor flood stage. Over the next few days, the water levels are predicted to rise to nearly 10 feet, which will cause flooding in the north end of Tower Street, including Curdwell Drive. Emergency officials say as conditions change, they're prepared for whatever Mother Nature throws at them.
Back in mid-April, we actually had the county commissioners sign an emergency proclamation that afforded us the opportunity to bring in some of our other partners that are active in components of flooding. We've been in constant communication with them as the forecast changes daily and the prediction changes daily throughout kind of this flood season.
Beck adds right now there are no plans to evacuate the Orchard Homes neighborhood. She says her team will continue to monitor that situation and alert homeowners using the Smart 911 app if there are current changing conditions. Busy night on this Tuesday evening, but we have a lot more coming up on Montana right now. Western Montana's whooping cough outbreak reaches triple digits, and now health officials are warning residents of re-exposure to the disease. We'll explain after Tracy's full weather forecast. And just ahead, middle school students are taking their knowledge outside of the classroom. We follow these kiddos as they learn more about our state's invasive species. That's coming up after the break.